joining today, and we're gonna get started with our market report. See how the interest rates are performing these days. We're gonna go over geo data. There's a new links for that, so that's pretty important. We're gonna go through Century Lock, and we're gonna go through our residential leases, how we actually print them out for our clients. All right. So if any of you guys have any questions, you can just unmute yourself or you can just drop it in the chat box and I'll try to answer any of your questions there. Okay. So from Wednesday on until Saturday now, today's Saturday, February 18th, and the interest rates are going higher. So according to Freddie Mac, it went up to 6.32 here. And like we said, the Freddie Mac is a little bit, delayed because it does on a weekly basis. And when we're comparing that to our mortgage news daily, and that is gone up to 6.8. Some of the files we are seeing that's close to this number, but some are a little bit lower. But that's the price range that they're seeing these days here. So we're definitely trending higher just because the government wants to control the inflation rate, and they still keep hiking the interest rates. The last hike they did was a little bit smaller than what they were doing usually, but as we can see that the interest rates are going higher. We'll see that on next Wednesday and see if it comes down or not. And we said, these interest rates are really connected with the bonds. When there's a more sell-off of the bonds of these mortgages, the interest rates goes higher. So you don't have to know in details regarding that. If you do, that's a good note. But just know that the interest rates these days are going higher compared to last week, right? We're seeing it even we're locking in interest rates at 5.87, just at many loans for 5.99. So right now it's definitely on the higher end, guys. Okay, and hopefully next week it comes down. Any questions on the interest rates, guys, before we move on? Right, because we're tracking it so often now, twice a week, so we're gonna see it. Just like how the chart goes up and down, we're gonna be doing the same thing here too. So we know exactly how the market is. Okay. And obviously, if they're going with the FHA loan, it's usually a little bit cheaper than the 30-year conventional loan to start off with. But as we know that there are some benefits, pros and cons to both of them. And the loan officer can give them both options and see which one your client wants to go with. Okay. And this is just a news article stating exactly what we're talking about. The mortgage rates move up for the second straight week. And we have seen that in our meetings as well. And we'll keep tracking it and see how it performs by next Wednesday. Okay. For the mortgages delinquencies, this is when the owner stopped making the payments because there's some issues. This is the first time we're seeing a little bit rise on that note, where some homeowners are having issues with those payments. So if that's the case, and on our last meeting we went over our short sale foreclosures, if anybody's having those issues, you just want to talk to them and just give them the options. Hey, you have a hardship and you can't make the payment. Instead of delaying a year, let's talk to the see one, if you want to sell the property, if there's enough equity in there, and if you want to move on, you want to downsize, depending on the situation. But as realtors, we should be the icebreakers. We should be just talking to them, because sometimes, because of their financial situation, they don't want to tell you the details. But once you start building relationships, and you know that the client is having some issues, you have options for them. Either one, they can sell the house, downsize, or you can do a short sale if the mortgage amount that they have is a lot more than the property value. We went over that too, right? So I think someone had a question here. uh, Good. Yes, sir. Question. How are you, sir? Sure, sure. Sounds good. Yeah, yeah, everything's good except for the interest rates. They are going a little bit higher. So hopefully when you come back, and hopefully they come down too. Yeah, right. Yeah, so we're just having a conversation here. Like, if we know a client is having some sort of issues making their, mortgage payments, we have options for them. You want to have that conversation as realtor. Say, hey, I'm a licensed realtor, and maybe I can help you. And as the more people with 2008, we know there was a whole crisis. A lot of people, we are not in that stage. This is just a starting point. This is around 4% right now that people who cannot or they have outstanding mortgages. So it's very low, but just a conversation starter. Okay. Uh, you're welcome, guys. Yep. Next, on a positive note, though, there are a lot, close to a million properties that's being built, right? Multifamily units being built right now, and that's the most since 1973. So that's a good sign. So, again, on our last, we had a lot of property that were showing that they were built in 60s and 70s and 80s, and then they stopped because people were just, it's easier or cheaper to renovate the place and sell that, right? But now, when the property's made in, like, actually built in 1950, when you renovate it, the structure is still like so weak inside, right? Everything needs to be replaced. So the investor thinks that it's best to just knock it down completely and rebuild it and make their money out of it. And obviously, when that is done, they're not going to sell the property for lower end. It's going to be on the higher end. It's brand new building, brand new construction, so the property value will be a lot higher. But we're seeing more properties built, so that's a good note. And when you do see a property that's being built, start to get the conversation going. If you see a number, call them. If there's a sign there, call them, and just to get to know that property, because that property eventually will come on MLS when the time comes. But if you already started contacting the owner beforehand, maybe you can get that deal done from the buyer side, or potentially get a listing out of it. Okay. And we know that right now the market, it is the way it is, just because everybody thinks that the interest rates are so high, I shouldn't be buying. And we just want to advise them, if there's a property that's listed for $500,000 and the interest rates are right now 6.8, as we see as averages, um, maybe they want to buy it right now and refinance it later, right? And if the property numbers make sense, if the property true value is $500,000, they're not going to buy it for 550, right? But at the same time, if it's $500,000 value and they're getting it for 480, they probably go with it. And if the interest rates comes down in a year, they will refinance it and still have equity built by then, right? Especially if they're renting. These investors that have plenty of properties, they're definitely waiting. They don't want to purchase right now just because of the interest rates. But at the same time, if it's a first time home buyer that's renting, that has enough money, they're still going to be there. And this is according to the mortgage note, that the spring home shopping season is going to be busy, right? So we should get prepare ourselves for that too. Again, we have the tools in KV Core just to know what's on the market, so keep an eye on it. Prepare yourself for the spring. Okay. And since we started these meetings, I like the fact that some of you guys already reached out to me, that you guys are getting into commercial side. You guys are looking on LoopNet, where just the commercial properties itself, and then when you guys having a buyer that's interested in commercial, you guys know where to look for. So I think that's a good note. So again, if you're not aware of it, it's loopnet.com, and it's free to use. Just put in the zip code that you want or the county that you want, and then you sort it by the newest one, and you will see the latest property that's on the market up here. Right? Just spend less than 5 minutes on this website every single day, and trust me, once you start seeing the properties one by one, you'll get used to it. And when you have an investor or a person that's looking for a commercial property, you know what to say and where to look for. Okay. Any questions on LoopNet, guys? All right. So let's talk about geodata now, right? Geodata is a service that we use to get the value for the property. As soon as you see a property or you show a property to your client, the first step should be going to geodata and putting in the address there and seeing what the value you're seeing there, right? These are the values that the appraisals are using that as a starting point, and then they're doing their comps. But geodata is a very powerful tool that we can use. Not a lot of brokerages offer that to their agents. It's a paid service, but it's a shared service with us. So you have our logins and you can go ahead and use those. But most recently, geodata was acquired by a company called Atom. So every time we are seeing the evaluation on the bottom, it usually says it's powered by Atom, right? But now, I believe it's been more than 6 months or close to a year, they actually acquired geodata, and now they actually started changing the website. So on your bookmarks, in your bookmarks for in Google Chrome, when you click on geodata, it might take you to atomdata.com, right? Some of them it will just take you to the login page. Some of you guys are having some issues and you guys are not seeing that, and you have to go to atomdata.com. If it takes you here, you want to click on solutions, and you want to click on property navigator. Yeah. Slide, no, this is the website. You see it? Oh, really? 1 second. And nobody mentioned that, guys. Thanks, Mohammed. Give me 1 second. Now? All right, perfect. So just because you mentioned that, the old Anthony, okay. These are real quickly. I'm going to take 2 minutes to just review this. This is what I was seeing here on Freddie Mac interest rate 6.32, on our Mortgage News Daily 6.80. This was the article. This was the second article. This was for the newly built. It might be a good idea. Probably I'll share these links with you guys in the chat too. Okay. And this was LoopNet. Okay. So now this is where we at. Atomdata.com, right? So once you're in here, solutions, property navigator, you're gonna click on sign in, and it should take you to this page. And this login, because we're live right now, so this login we already shared it with you. If you don't have it, just send me a message. I'll share that with you. But Geodata's login is still the same as Atom, right? So once you sign in, and now this should look very familiar to you as it was with Geodata. This has not changed much instead of just the coloring and everything and the logo, but the functionality is very similar to what it was before. So let's use an example now that we have this brand new property on the market in West Hempstead for 499, right? And let's say you showed it to the client and they loved it and they say, hey, let's put in an offer. So I would copy the address, go to Geodata. By default, it says county selected for Nassau. Oh, sorry, Queens. You can either click on all counties, or if you know the county for sure, just click on Nassau, right, for now. And then type in the address. It will give you a drop down there, and it will do the searching. Okay, it took a while, but it's here, right? Always verify the address on top here. I usually just paste it and just to confirm, right? And then again, just like how we saw in Geodata, we see all the good stuff like the ownership, right? Who owns the property? What is the Lot size is 80 by 100, right? What's the class? This is a one family. Looking at the taxes here, it's close to 10,000. Okay, and this is what we're looking at here. These two comparison. This one is market value. The second one is rental value. Okay. So this one is showing that on the lowest, I mean, the range is between 525 and 550, right? So for this property, the range is not huge. It's just $25,000 different. Sometimes we do see a difference of 100,000, 120,000, right? Then you can use the middle number and see, what kind of information you get there. Or when you want to do more comps individually what's on the market, but this should be a good starting point. So if the this property is listed for 499 and you see this 536, so anybody wanted to guess how much we should put in the offer for, you can put it in the chat box. If it's listed for 500,000, geodata is saying 536. In this market, the way we're seeing it, what should we put the price the offer for? Anybody, any number? All right, 450, Muhammad. Okay, anybody else? 499. Okay, 500 for Brian. Okay, 475. Okay, these are good. 550. 550. Okay, so we got between 450 and 550, right? And geodata is telling us 536. So the first question that everybody should ask is how much work it needs, the property needs, right? If the property owner needs $40,000, I'll put a different offer. If the property needs $100,000 work, it will be a different offer. So let's just assume that the property is going to cost, the renovation is going to cost $50,000. You know, does anything changes with your offer if we say the work needs is around $50,000? So it's listed for 499, right? And it needs $50,000 work. So it's gonna cost us 550. So we bought it for 500. We put in $50,000. That's 550. Geodata is saying about 530 or 540, right? So I would start off with this offer around. I believe Miranda, you did it on right in the middle. I think 475. That's a good number to start off with, right? And then you move up accordingly. If the listing agent says, hey, we have higher offer, and your investor or your buyer says, hey, I want to go higher, then you go a little bit higher. The first and the biggest question should be, hey, it's listed for this much. How much additional is going to cost us, right, for the repairs, and then we're going to relist it, right? Because if they're making money, they're going to give you that listing, the same buyer that you bought this property for. If you have a good relationship, as soon as they renovate it within a month or so, they're going to call you back, hey, I'm ready to relist this. Okay, but 475 should be our starting point in this situation. Every situation is different, but in this situation 475 is a good number to start off with. Anybody disagrees or anybody thinks it's too much, too little, right? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and it was assuming, like I said, if we say we know we show them the property and an investor says, hey, it's going to cost me $50,000, and you said, hey, it's Mr. Investor is listed for 499, and you think that it's going to cost us $50,000 to renovate it, so you're looking at 550. So I believe that for the 499 or for him. Yeah, for what we're saying is the listing price, that's just a starting point. And that's the conversation I usually have with the seller too. So, there's different strategy as you mentioned, they can put in the lower end, they could put in the higher end, and depending on the market, how many offers they're getting. But at the same time, if it's listed for 499 and we know is $50,000 work, and geodata is showing this between 475 480. It's a good starting point. We're not saying again that will be the sold price. That's a good starting point as the offer, because you can never go down, but you can obviously go up. When you put your offer, you can't say, hey, I'm putting 500,000 and then say, no, we want to reduce it to 475, right? So since Adam bought Geodata, there's been a lot more properties with this model now. Before it was about, I think, 70 or 80. Now they're saying is about 90% of the property that's on Geodata or on Adam are showing up as a market valuation estimator. So use this for every offer that you're making, just to start off with, or even if you have a seller. Sometimes a seller comes to, an owner comes to our office here, and they're saying, hey, I'm thinking about selling my house. I take the address, I throw in geodata, I turn my screen around, I say, hey, let's take a look at this. This is what the appraisals are using as a starting point. This is what you're going to be looking at. It might be a little bit higher, it might be a little bit lower, but that's a good starting point to look at. Okay. Any questions, concerns about Atom or geodata, guys? All right. Sure. No, 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 go ahead, go ahead before you fail. Mm-hmm. So just one thing though, it has to be in the contract as a contingency, because when we are going under contract, we don't know what the bank is going to appraise it at. We are just assuming it, right? So if there's $100,000 gap, that means as a realtor we're doing something wrong. But if it's a 10,000, 20,000, $30,000 difference, we're right in the ballpark. But to save yourself or save your buyer, you just got to make sure that there's a contingency, which is a clause in the contract saying that the property must appraise at that value or higher, right? If it comes down to five, you put in an offer for 500,000 and the bank says worth 510 or 600,000. That's a beautiful thing, right? Because your buyer has equity right from the get-go, from day one. But if it's the other way around, the seller is going to say, hey, you're willing to pay $500,000 and your bank is saying $400,000. Either change the bank, right? Get another appraisal, or come up with $100,000 that you're short from your pocket, right? If the buyer doesn't have $100,000 extra, which most cases don't, right? Most people don't have 100,000 just laying around. The contingency is going to come in handy. So that's why we always make sure that when we're putting in the offer, always make sure your home appraisal contingency and your home inspection contingencies are in there, right? Does that answer your question, Brian? Well, they won't have a conversation with you if the clause is not in there. Like with the COVID time, right? There was people were waiving these clauses because they couldn't get the property. But right now, we're not in that situation. So every time you guys putting an offer, there's got to be a contingency. If the contingency is in the contract, then you're having a conversation with the listing agent. Hey, we put an offer for 500,000, but the bank is saying 400,000 now, so we got to renegotiate, right? They probably won't come down to 400,000, but maybe you guys can agree on 450 if that's a legitimate appraised value, right? But the seller will just not have any conversation if the contract doesn't have that, right? Sure, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, all these things. Yeah, and like I said, these meetings are to clarify things, and hopefully, because of this question, maybe it'll help another agent, or even when they watch it later as a recording. So as long as you please, any of these questions that you have in your mind, just ask, because maybe someone else can learn from it too. So please don't hesitate. So you know, again, as long as we have these contingencies, you're protected, right? Your buyer's protected, and this has happened many times where the bank came down not 100,000 but 20,000. hey, the kitchen, you guys said it was a, the kitchen looks great, but the cabinets are really old. So the appraisal says, hey, it's going to cost $5,000 to renovate the kitchen or upgrade the kitchen. The bathroom, one of the bathroom is really, in a terrible condition, and it's going to cost another $5,000 for the bathroom renovations. So all these things can add up, but as long as the contingency is in the contract, I mean, your buyer is safe. Okay. Yeah, the way we say it, these should be standard unless you're waiving it, right? Contingency should be in there. The home appraisal contingency, your inspection contingency, all of them should be in the contract. But as a realtor, it makes us look good too when you're having a conversation with your buyer's attorney. Hey, my buyers are coming tomorrow to sign at 1 p.m. in your office. I just want to make sure on your contract the contingencies are there, right? Usually, when you waiving it, you would put in the offer letter all the way on the bottom. There's 4 lines blank. You would put it here. We're waiving the appraisal contingency. We're waiving home inspection, stuff like that. But usually, the attorneys, they're protecting your client as well, right? So they want to have all those contingencies unless they want to cross it out, and you would have to tell them, hey, we agreed as a with the when we put in the offer to the listing agent that we'll go with $500,000 and we'll waive all of these. And again, we don't want to waive these in this market. You only want to waive them when you're putting an offer for so many properties and none of them are getting accepted, when we had a truly a seller's market. Right now, we are neutral. I wouldn't recommend waiving any of these contingencies for now. Right? All right, guys. Good stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Unless, like you said, if we want to waive it, they will cross that whole paragraph out, which is appraisal contingency, and then obviously, the buyers and the sellers have to initial it and agree on it. And like I said, these days we should not be waiving any of these, right? Any other questions, concerns, guys, before we move on? Right? Okay, that's what we viewed. All right, guys, let's talk about Sentry Lock, right? So this is a Sentry Lock service. It's a smart Sentry Lock service by our MLS, right? And this is done throughout the whole United States. Sentry Lock is a service, but we get our Sentry Lock service from our LIBOR, right? It's an additional fee, which is about $140 for the whole year. And this is has both benefits for the buyer's agent and for the listing agent, right? So for let's talk about the listing agent. If the listing agent actually purchase it, instead of purchasing a lockbox from Amazon or Home Depot, where there's a key and and a number just like this, but it's not smart, right? It's not connected to through Bluetooth or any of those sorts, right? Those are your standard lockboxes. The problem with those lock boxes is that you don't know when someone is going in and out of your property, right? And you have to change the lockbox numbers, combinations frequently. Some of us we do it on monthly basis. Some of them they do it on weekly basis. Really depend on their situation, how many people are showing the property. To make things easier, this is really good for listing agents that don't want to go through changing the lock boxes. They would just purchase a Bluetooth lockbox. So it looks something like this, and it connects through Bluetooth, right? So if you have the app on your phone, you would go turn on your Bluetooth, open up your app, and go next to the lockbox, press enter there, and it will connect, right? The listing agent would know which agent's actually opening up this lockbox. That's the beauty of it. What time? It keeps a full log of it, which agent actually went to the property, right? So instead of purchasing an old lockbox, they would purchase this one and have a service. And from the buyer's side, right, as a buyer's agent, the beauty of this is that you don't have to keep asking for the lockbox, the combination, or pick up the keys from the office or anything like that, right? You simply use your app, you get access to it, they give you the key, you put the keys back, you lock it, and that's end of story. But then again, before when they started, this service was part of MLS. When one key came in, one key divided the fees into separate pieces. So Century Key has a separate optional fee of $140 for the whole year, right? Again, if use this if you're frequently showing properties, and this it turns out to be around $10 per month for this service. But if you're frequently showing properties, I would recommend that you have this, right? Again, not every listing agent is using it either, right? You might have the service, maybe you just use it a few times a month. At the same time, there might be a listing agent that only requires you to have the service to show the property. Prior to this, they were giving one-time code. Hey, if you don't have the service, that's fine. You call the office and say, hey, I want to show 123 Main Street, and could I have a one-time lockbox number, right? A code. They will take your license number and they give you your lockbox code. But they stopped doing that because Century Lock, they want to make money, so they want all the agents to actually have the service for themselves, right? On the individual level. Any of you guys using the service or interested more information on this or had any issues showing a property with Century Key? Yeah. So there was a payment issue? Yeah, but okay. I mean, if it's a payment issue, if it's, which number you're calling, there's two numbers. There's one for new sign up, which is this, the 63 number one, 631 number, and there's also this 877 number, right? Sure, sure. Yeah, so I would just simply call them back and just give them, because they're eager, they want your money. Nobody's gonna say no to that, so they will try again. But if you guys want to access these numbers here, guys, if you're in your teams under LG Realty team, if you don't see this channel Century Key here, click on hidden channels, and then it will show up here, because obviously mine is showing up here now. If you don't see it, it will be under hidden. Okay, and just call this. Yeah, and when you're guys talking to them, give them your MLS member ID, right? With it's connected through that. As long as you get this done, like I said, it will make your life easier, and makes the listing agent's life a little bit easier as well, right? Anybody else had issues or anything with this? Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that that's perfectly said. Yeah, I mean, I would go with, like, if you see one property that has Century Key or Century Lockbox, and you didn't have access to it, and you missed out on that opportunity, right? And then you had another one, and if you get a couple of those, you're gonna be, instead of showing your client, you probably lose that client because of this service. So why not get that $140, especially if you're showing on a regular basis? If you're a part-time agent and you feel like you don't need it, it's optional, it's fine. But again, just to make your life easier too, you don't want to lose out on that transaction because of the service, right? Anyone else with Century Key or Century Lock issues, concerns? All right, guys. Next is our lease agreement, right? Especially for new agents, guys, right? If you want to just print out the lease agreement, if you're having a conversation, hey, you're a realtor, the first thing, and as you're talking to a landlord or a owner, they probably ask you for a lease agreement. Hey, do you guys have standard lease agreements? Do you guys charge for that? Right? The answer should be we don't charge for that, and I can provide you a lease agreement. But the condition is that they have to fill it out. They have to get it signed. If they want to get it notarized, you don't want to be involved in that part. You can provide them a standard lease, right? To access that, you can go to ljagent.com, and under forms here, right? This is how it looks, forms. First, you have your listing agent, your buyer's agent. You can either print it out from landlord's agent or as a tenant's agent. Both of them have the same link. So click on lease agreement. So the first thing it says on top is consult your lawyer before signing this lease, right? Because these leases here, they're standard, but the landlord probably want to add few things, remove few things, right? Those are, every property has their own, is different on individual level. So you just want to, first thing you want to tell them is that, hey, I can provide you the lease. There's no problem. There's no charge, but just consult with your lawyer before signing this lease. On the left here is going to be the premises. That's the property address. If the unit number, you have your landlord's information, you have your tenant's information. When did the lease start? Was the annual rent, monthly rent, and the security deposit, and all these clauses going from 1 through 45. So we can clearly see there's 45 things, right? That's listed here. Maybe some of them they will want to cross out. That's perfectly fine. Whatever the condition is, if they want to add few things, they can add as 46 here, 47 here. They can add few things here. But when they're ready, they're gonna have the landlord and the tenant sign. And some of them want to get it notarized. That's fine. Some of them don't, right? Another thing you want them to get is the tenants, photo IDs, their license, valid IDs, and have that on file as a landlord. Right? You just want to advise these things so they know that you're professional, and when the time comes to sell the property, they come back to you rather than going to anybody else. Okay. And if you're sending this, I mean, if you're in our office and you're printing it, click on print, but always make sure you select legal size. Okay, so it comes on a longer page and it looks more professional, and it comes out as 3 pages. Okay, and it should be really handy, especially, and this is a good connector to connect with the landlords, and like we said, it makes you look good when you're providing this information. Questions, concerns, how to access, any comments? No. All right, guys, and the last thing that we want to talk about is just the buying power, right? Interest rates make a huge difference when it comes to buying power. When we say few basis points, when we say basis point, these are just the interest rates, even going up in tenth, 5.5 to 5.6 or 6.8 to 6.9. They're going. It makes a huge difference. So today's interest rates are, we saw, around 6.8, right? As averages, and someone wants to get a loan for around 400,000, let's say, right? And we hit continue. The loan amount is 400,000. This does not include down payment and all that. That will be separate. This is just a loan amount, right? We're looking at the principal and the interest rate that they're going to be paying on monthly basis. Their property taxes will be different. Their home insurance will be different. But just on the $400,000 loan amount and the interest rate, we say 6.8 as average, you're looking at monthly payment of $2,600, right? So that same, this payment is not going to change, but the amounts will, depending on the interest rate they're getting. So if they're getting 6.8, as we said, they can qualify for 400,000, and their monthly payment will be 2607. But if the interest rate they're getting is 6.925, right, they will qualify for less than $5,000. So it'll be 395 for the loan amount, the payment will still be the same. So if the person is getting 7% interest rate for the same payment, they qualify for up to 392. So the buying power is decreasing when the interest rates are increasing, right? On the highest end, if we're saying the interest rates are 7.425 for the same payment, they're going to get a loan for 376. So does that make sense? The borrowing power will decrease because you can see that 2607, the monthly payment is not changing, right? In any of these scenarios, the monthly payment is the same, but the interest rates are increasing. It went from 6.8 all the way up to 7.425, and the buying power, it went from 400,000 to 376. Okay, so interest rates can make a huge difference when it comes to purchasing a property, right? Questions, concerns? Does this make sense? Right. All right, that's it from my slides, guys. Here, tell me if you guys have any questions about any of these things that we spoke about, or anything that you guys want to speak about on the next meeting. Any topics that's on your mind? Just to review, we went over the interest rates. Anything about geodata, properties, Century Lock, leases, or the buying power? Any questions, guys? Yep. Sure. Yeah, even lower, 3%. Hmm. Sure. So first is, if they're gonna go with FHA, they have to live there, right? If they're not gonna live there for at least a year, they cannot get FHA. So that's the biggest difference, right? That they have to live there for at least a year, right? The PMI for FHA will go away if they're putting down more than 10%. If they go with 3.5% with FHA, the PMI never goes away. The mortgage insurance never goes away. They have to refi, you know, I don't know if it takes 2 years, 5 years, they have to eventually refi. But if they, even with FHA, just want to get that out, if they're getting an FHA loan and they're putting down more than 10%, 10% or more, the PMI will go away, right? But with conventional, the interest, if your credit is good, the interest rates are a little bit lower, and you get, you can put down 3.5%, but it's better in the long run. The way I would tell our clients, even when they're coming here, is to actually, because everybody got a different scenario, but just tell them upfront that you, just as you mentioned now, that you don't have to put down 20% for conventional. You can put lower, but they have to talk to the loan officer and actually get a loan estimate, one for FHA and one for conventional, right? And see, because some person probably have 15% down payment, and maybe some person only has 3.5 or 5% down payment. The scenarios will be different. If the first question should be, are you going to live there? If this is for investment, they cannot get FHA. It has to be conventional, right? Does that make sense? Or go more? Yeah, the conventionals, like I said, if the credit score, if the person has a credit score of 620, right, and they have options between FHA and conventional, the conventional for 620 might be, the interest rate might be higher, right? So that client with the low credit score might have a better option with FHA. Now if the same client now has more than 10% um, down payment, FHA is still fine with them, because end of the day the credit score is low. They cannot get, the interest rate is much higher with the conventional compared to the FHA, because FHA program is there to, is a government backed program to assist people with low credit scores or low down payment, right? Conventional, you can do 3%, but the credit score has to be good, right? It has to be better. So the best advice is, I think the icebreaker should be what you nailed it right off the bat, is the 20%. If someone says, hey, I'm going to go with conventional because I'm going to put down 20%, tell them you don't have to put down 20% for conventional. If you want to put down less and put that money to a better use for something else, that's even better. You just want to advise them, but just tell them you don't have to put down 25 or 20% for conventional, but get a loan estimate for both options. That's the best way to approach it, because they can come to us and we can give them certain numbers. They can go to Chase or they can go to Bank of America, get different numbers, but tell them to get different numbers for both FHA and conventional. Some guys don't even touch conventional part, even if their credit score is above 740, and they just feel like FHA might be a better option. That's not the case. Conventional will definitely be a better option if their credit score is 740 and above. Yeah, yeah. Again, yeah. Mhm. Better qualification, yeah, for sure. And when it comes to appraisals, right, the conventional loans are a little bit easier going. We have seen so many files of ours where you guys put, agent puts an offer, and the agreed price is 500,000, and when we're doing the application, it simply says appraisal waived, because the banks now, the lenders, they have enough data where they don't even have to send out appraisal out there to appraise the property, and they just feel like the 500,000 is good for us, and they will waive the appraisal. That never happens with FHA. With FHA, they want someone to go there, inspect every little detail for the property. So conventional does have its pros, and that's also saving. When that happens, you're saving two things. One is that you're saving your client about $700 for the appraisal fees, and two is that you're saving about a week time frame, so the closing is a lot quicker, or we get at least clear to close a lot quicker when the appraisal is waived. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, and it really depends. I mean, on the situation too for the property. If they're getting a lot of offers, and obviously they want to go with the strongest offer, a conventional, 20%, 30%, whatever the case might be. But if the property's not getting a lot of offers and the offer is solid and they're putting FHA 3.5, they probably get it accepted too. So, like I said, it's all about the market. When we saw this many times with during COVID, our agents were putting in an offer, and for FHA it was just not getting accepted, just because the seller has so many other options from the conventionals to pick from, you know so even if it's a FHA or conventionals these days, put in your offer and see how it goes. And the best person, because every situation is different, the best person that can advise your client is the loan officer, and actually getting the loan estimates, not just saying, hey, I'm going to give you this, I'm going to offer you this. Getting an actual loan estimate on piece of paper. A lot of lenders don't want to provide it, and we're the other way around. We want to give all the knowledge to your clients. Hey, this is what we're offering, go compare that with other lenders and see how you go about it. So go with the loan estimates and compare those. Right? Any other questions, concerns, guys? You're welcome. All right, guys. Anything else that comes to your mind, you guys can send me a message in Teams. Any topic for Wednesday's meeting at 11, you guys can mention that as well. Um, and hopefully, like I said, we learn from these meetings and we want to make it better too. Any of your feedback is much appreciated. Make us improve as well. So anything that you guys don't understand, if you guys not comfortable saying it here,